Alright, getting back here onto a briefing following a very hectic week. Of course, the bottom line is to avoid further military escalation and confrontation between Russia and Ukraine. The consequences will result on the most catastrophic event on Earth since the extinction of the dinosaurs. I've already been speaking about the nuclear winter that was discussed also between Washington DC and Moscow in the 1980s. Mankind will not last for over than 6 months at the best. Of course, besides these dramatic scenarios, there is also the radioactive pollution repercussion that could last between decades and centuries, and therefore create a biological warfare that will mix with the modern bacteriological war that is ongoing from 2019 to present. If we look at the map of diplomacy right now in this conflict, the West has the United States, the European Union, and NATO, as well as some other country groupings. The main question to be asked in this context of action, like when a boat is sinking, you have to analyze how to keep it afloat, how to do in order to prevent the Russian economy from collapsing, because that could lead to bigger chaos, and therefore a need of cooperation is very much needed in this context of action. The work of China is very efficient in the crisis, as well as of other country groupings such as BRICS, the CIS, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. China could be an important moderator of the crisis indeed, and for that matter, a very important step first is lowering the tension that is existing between the United States and the People's Republic of China. That will also lead to lowering the tension between the United States and Russia. The recent events in the United States shows that there is some work regarding big data China when it comes to China's imports and American jobs. There is a reassessment when it comes to big data China, and this is a work that have involved the trustee chair in Chinese business and economics in Washington DC with the Stanford Center of China's Economy and Institution. So this presents in fact, the latest Big China publication. It features an overview of the latest data-driven research about the impact of trade with China on employment trades in the United States. It also provides a comparative analysis with other countries. The analysis shows that there are various interpretations on the topic, each with important implications with the policymakers. So very good to look on this work and have it get further up within the upcoming weeks. Among the other moderators that we could add to this situation is, of course, the United Nations via the circuits of the United Nations Security Council. As we know, many things do not work through the Council, and now presently there is an example, another action within the United Nations General Assembly when it comes to the context of appeasing between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine must work onto diplomacy in this context of action. Very important points. If I want to move to the topic of the modern bacteriological war, very important to remind again that COVID-19 is the fourth deadliest pandemic in history. And those are challenging times that look like the times of the combined events of World War One and the Spanish influenza, as well as the one of World War Two. I've already spoken about this a week ago, in the beginning of October, on Twitter. So the medical front is ongoing, like I said, with the Omicron and its variants, and the economic front is the most important thing during the 2020s. So following up with the steering committee regarding this context of action. The world needs more smiles than bombs following these 3 years, I believe. So visions that I want to speak about, and that's very important. The world has to rely on visions in order to get further in our agendas. The 2020s, decade of fixing the global economy. Several work on diplomacy. I will follow up with the candidacy of the Kingdom of Morocco to the United Nations Security Council for the 2027 elections. Morocco is a candidate to be a non-permanent member of the Council for 2028 and 2029. This decade is also about creating as many SDGs and their targets as possible. The 2020 will be very daunting, as I mentioned before, and this is due to the modern bacteriological war. But the 2030s must be the one of further optimism, with continuing on the unachieved SDGs and their targets as well. The 2040s must be the ones of cementing the 2050 visions of development and environment. So at a glance, if because I'm afraid I'm not gonna have time to get back to the summary of the general debate of the UNGS 77, following this year with the most important things that are related to the crisis of multilateralism. I heard a selective number of speech that are very important to my agenda: the one of the United States, the one of the People's Republic of China, the one of Russia. From the perspective of the international organizations, the one of the United Nations and the one of the European Union. Both of them, of course, were, to me, interesting in how to analyze the crisis of multilateralism and also the efficiency of country groupings inside of the crisis between Russia and Ukraine and outside of it. I heard from Europe, from Great Britain, from France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Ukraine. From the Americas, I heard as well from Canada. From Africa, I heard the speeches of Morocco and Senegal. And from Asia and the Pacific, I heard from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Jordan, Japan, the Republic of Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. When you come to climate change, the heat waves are the worst since the Middle Ages. We have noticed cataclysmic events here when it comes to flooding. I speak about the situation in Florida. I will get back later on to emphasize on the work of FEMA at a federal level, helping the states, and also getting back also to the crisis on flooding of Pakistan that is definitely becoming out of hand as of today. There are situations of droughts, all added to the winter conditions. So I hope that the Climate Week of New York City and COP27 will contribute furthermore to combat the issues of climate change. When it comes to the food crisis, the question, as I mentioned last month, is always about will it turn global in 2023? It's still impacted by the Russian-Ukrainian conflict consequences. Right now we have dire conditions when it comes to this in Afghanistan and Somalia. The devastating impacts of natural and man-made catastrophes are also leading to extreme poverty and rise of extremism throughout the world. I have a lot of reports always to analyze from the month of September as well as in the beginning of October, advancing on the United Nations Security Council's reports of the Secretary General as well as his reports to the United Nations General Assembly. The humanitarian reports on Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Somalia, noting here the efforts of Martin Griffiths and in this context of action. The UNDP's Human Development Report 2021-2022, very long report and very rich as it mentions a lot of things related to how development can tackle poverty and extremism. And of course, the work of the IAEA, the report on the Ukrainian plants, and following up also with the development as well when it comes to the work of the two staff members of the IAEA that are present right now in Zaporizhia. Outside of the United Nations report, working as well on the Gates Foundation 2022 Goalkeepers report that reflects also on the advancements of the Sustainable Development Goals. Among the other things that I could mention, if we come back to the counterterrorism perspective, as I have spoken about, the nuclear part about the tactic of counterterrorism that was discussed on the 10th NPT review conference, in which I participated from August the 1st to the 12th. I have to mention here that whatever is done, nuclear is very hard to tackle when it comes to information sharing. It's like COVID-19 between quotes, because there is no certainty to stop it in the future. Anyone from the scientists of any country that had nuclear information could not be stopped. There is no thing that will stop the information not to be shared. It's a consciousness of mankind. I don't know, even if we have another NPT review conference before 2025, what will it do if we do not act upon the consciousness of mankind in this context of action? Following up here also with the Yalana, the LCNP, reverse the trend, and the Rotary when it comes to nuclear proliferation. Chemical is as dangerous. Following up with the OPCW, you have to know that if we analyze the consequences of the bombings on Dresden and Hamburg during World War II, they had as many casualties or even more than Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined, and those had only normal bombings from the Allies when they were fighting against the Nazis. It's about human consciousness, bottom line. Working still on the synthesis of the ICC, 20 years of work, and the latest reports and activity of the courts. When it comes to the United Nations Security Council, we kicked off with the presidency of Gabon during the month of October, that will be followed by the one of Ghana in November, always focusing on the programs of work, the working practices, how efficient the council is versus the General Assembly. How could there be a difference between the role of the permanent members and the non-permanent members, especially when it comes to the veto, and the importance and efficiency of the area formulas meetings in terms of deliberation. Of course, we will be following up with the next candidates for the elections of 2023 and 2024. Like I said, UNGA right now is a very important circuit in order to go further in this crisis between Russia and Ukraine, since the Council is pretty much not being able to advance. In terms of counterterrorism, always I will get onto a list of reports as well that are related to the work of UNOCT, especially the latest activities in Rabat, Morocco, from the regional UNOCT center, and as well at the level of Amman in Jordan, as well as the technical work of CITED, UNODC, and UNIDIR. I will reflect on that when it comes to the case advancements of 2022. Other conflicts and issues that I have referred to the International Criminal Court in 2022 has to be also seen by now. We must not forget about the situation of Balkanization of other countries in Europe. In Americas, we have the situation of Nicaragua and Central America at large, as well as the chaotic issues in Cuba and Haiti. In Africa, I will follow with the leadership of Morocco in terms of counterterrorism strategy in the MENA region. Getting back here to the insinuation of Algeria at the UNGA 77 that is backed by Iran, all this do not affect the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Morocco from Tangier to La Guaira. When it comes to other issues in Africa, there is the one of Libya. The presidential election have been postponed since December 2021, and there is an urgent need to place them as soon as possible in the agenda in order to have them contribute as moderator to peacekeeping in Libya. Other conflicts constituted in Africa from the Sahel region. I speak here about Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, the Central African Republic as well. The issues of the DRC, Nigeria, the Tigray conflict in Ethiopia, as well as again the situation of Somalia outside of the famine and poverty with Al Shabaab, and the problems in Sudan and South Sudan. In the Asia and Pacific, focusing during this month of October as well on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the situations in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, and also here I'll get back onto the provocations of Iran against Iraq. Iran itself, we have to speak here about the dire situation of human rights inside of this country, as well as the situation when it comes to the JCPOA. Getting back to Afghanistan and the chaotic situation with the Taliban, Pakistan, and of course, and I call for a meeting right now between the four countries of Northeast Asia, the People's Republic of China, the Empire of Japan, the Republic of Korea, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, in order to lower the tension in the region. There is also the conflict of Myanmar in Asia. If I move to the United States, very important here to speak about the crisis of identity that is deeper than the one of politics and democracy. It is related also to the future of neoliberalism in the 2020s. And the protests since 2020 has shown that there is a need of long-term reset where elections are micro steps, as I have already been speaking about it at several occasions on my past videos. From a federal perspective, following up with the governance, aside from the situation in Europe and the speech at the UNGA 77 lately, actions on the Horn of Africa are also to be mentioned from the perspective of USAID. So if we want to speak about a better view of the governance right now, the most important thing that we have to mention, and in terms of career tracks for anyone who is in international relations, is to focus onto the following: global security and intelligence, foreign policy, global markets, global development, and public diplomacy. The AI perspective is also to analyze from the UN perspective with UNIDIR, as well as from the governance project that is CIA related, while working on the software-defined warfare reports that is basically deepening on tech policy and strategy. I also commend the effort of Tesla when it comes to the AI perspective. I have been following up this summer with the meeting of the stakeholders of Tesla in Austin, as well as the latest AI Day that was hosted in California by Tesla. When it comes to election, and here, like I said, and as General Petraeus spoke about it last time, I am also in that position, but I have also friends that are supporting these candidates to run, and we're focusing on the Senate and Congress races of 2022 and 2024. Very important to shape the map in this country, full stop. The presidential for 2024 is too early to call right now. As I have mentioned already, it's not something that could be discussed by the politicians or the pundits that speaks on politics until the end of the Senate Congress race of 2022. From a state perspective, there is a gubernatorial race in New York and New Jersey. I want to get back onto the work that has been done when it comes to climate change. Very important to notice that the state is among the leader states nationwide in this context of action. from the local perspective, following up with the counterterrorism in New York City and also the actions that I am working on in New Jersey. So thank you for following regarding all these matters, and like I said, for right now, this is still a lot of work to do regarding this situation of Russia and Ukraine. I got back here to speak a little bit about more deliberated text of videos that I wanted to present, but just in case, because you never know, we might not have time to analyze everything within the hectic schedule of October. I've been given the highlights of what was dealt with during the month of September and also what is ongoing during the month of October. In the meantime, we'll be following up hopefully with short videos and also with the developments. Looking forward to do a bigger assessment when it comes to the development of every context of action that I have mentioned at the end of the month of October.